What's up, buddy? How you doing? I'm gonna be honest with you. This is my third attempt to review the Barbie movie. You would think it would not be that hard, but it is. This is a tremendously hard video for me to make. 'Cause honestly, there's a lot of emotions inside of me right now. And one emotion I'm trying not to let control me is anger. And you say, Vito, what are you talking about? Why would you be angry? Why would you be mad at the Barbie movie? Well, I'm not mad at the Barbie movie. I'm mad at the discussion around the Barbie movie. And it's a very complex topic, and I'll try not to waste too much time discussing it. But let me be clear. I'm a guy who cares deeply about the art of storytelling. I'm obsessed with stories. I'm obsessed with movies and TV shows and video games and books and novels and whatever. And I always have been. I consider a great story, a great work of art to be something truly beautiful. And I think we are on this earth to make beautiful things. So when I see a story which I consider a beautiful story, a truly inspirational or just artistic story, something that seems to come from a very real place and have real human emotion in it, I get swept up in that. I really do. I went to the theater and I watched Barbie, and I was swept up. I was swept off my feet. Parts of this movie had me in tears. I consider this a beautiful movie. Beautiful. But we live in a time where media criticism has become a very complex thing. It's no longer simply taking these stories and judging them objectively. We have been, for some reason, forced to examine these movies through this hyper-politicized lens, through the lens of this bizarre culture war that is being forced upon us by political grifters and associated idiots. Here I have a slight collection of some of these people. Matt Walsh tells me Barbie bombs innocent families with woke propaganda. Remember, this man is not a media reviewer. This man is a political commentator. Yet he believes that his political aims are assisted in trying to destroy this Barbie movie. Here he has portrayed Barbie as a bomb being dropped on poor, innocent families. Okay. Ben Shapiro, another major political commentator. A guy who is very invested in trying to tell you who will be the next president and why they deserve to be president. This man, again, using the film for political gain, knows, okay, if I review Barbie, people will come to me to see me dunk on it, to talk about all the awful liberal woke ideas in it, and my reach will grow. I will have more political influence. Guys like Hosea Rise's Barbie destroyed for woke men-hating agenda. Guys like Shadiversity, the same man who said Peach was woke in the Mario movie. Woke Peach. What an idea. Says that Barbie the movie is man-hating trash. So here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I think I've said this before on my channel, but I'll say it again just to make it very clear. I'm a person who's used this term woke in the past. When it first showed up on the scene as the new buzzword to replace whatever we were using before, talk of SJWs and always a new buzzword, right? I said, well, this seems fine. I'm fine to use this word. It seems very clearly applied to a certain brand of politics, and I get what that is. And I've talked about movies who get bogged down in their politics. Last Jedi, I think, is a movie that had a very clear feminist message. And I don't actually object, but the thing is, and that I don't think people understand, is I don't object to a feminist message. A film can have a feminist message. But if the feminist message is clunky and is not coherent, does not fit together with the plot of the movie, as I think was the case in The Last Jedi, then you could call it woke. You could say wokeness was a problem here. I guess that would be the definition of woke I hope people would use, is when politics are included in a movie where they do not really belong, where they are ham-fisted in, or maybe a little too on the nose. So I'll say this. There are parts of the Barbie movie that I would say are woke. I'm even willing to agree with that, even though it's a word I personally don't use because the definition of it has become so all-encompassing that it seems like every movie can be called woke now. But if you want to use that very strict definition of the politics being a little too on the nose, maybe coming across as a little preachy, I'm willing to say Barbie has some scenes like that. And I do think that it is a detriment to the movie. However, beyond those scenes, at its core, this is, again, a beautiful movie. This is a touching, heartfelt love letter to the toy line, a love letter to little girls, a love letter to the idea of what it is to be a woman. I know that sounds stupid, coming from a big fat Italian jackass, but even I, as somebody who I don't believe that I'm necessarily the target market for this film, I think this film is very much primarily aimed at women. I was able to put myself in the shoes of a woman and be like, well, I can see how this is something that I think would resonate with them and have a real message. And beyond that, beyond the female aspect of it, there was a human message that appealed to me as well. Now, it sounds crazy. A movie about plastic dolls has a human message at it. This is something that they've kind of hidden, that they haven't shown us in the trailers. I was like, wow, this movie is doing stuff. I thought this was just a stupid summer comedy, and Barbie is dealing with some very weighty, interesting issues. I was fascinated. It was a bold, creative choice. It was a creative choice that could have been disastrous. I thought it worked masterfully. So that's why I'm sad. I'm sad to see these guys who, let's be clear, they went into this movie to hate it. Ben Shapiro does not review movies unless he thinks there are points to be scored against the liberals. Same with Matt Walsh. Maybe guys like Hosea Rises and Shadiversity are more willing to be a little, they don't go into it with as much of an agenda, but I still think they are blinded by this culture war, where they have a movie that talks about feminism, talks about patriarchy, as Barbie does, but they seem to not understand that you can talk about those concepts and not have it be interfering with the narrative of the movie, not overshadowing the narrative, not taking away from it. In a way, many of the concepts that are discussed are actually satirical. This movie, at many times, is poking fun at modern-day politics, at poking fun at these culture warriors who take everything too seriously and think everything is the patriarchy. It's making fun of them at many points. And I think that's something that has definitely gone over the heads of some of these reviewers, many of these reviewers. Thankfully, I'm seeing a pushback, and I'm very happy about that. I see people ridiculing Ben Shapiro's ridiculous 43-minute review, asking why these political grifters are trying to grow their fan bases by making fun of popular movies. I would like to go back to a point in time where we go to movie reviewers and cultural critics for our reviews, where we don't go to guys who have a very clear political agenda. We'll see if this might be a turning point, because the way people have been dunking on Ben Shapiro, and rightfully dunking on Ben Shapiro, has been wonderful to see. Not to mention the fact that we've been told for so long, if a movie goes woke, it will go broke. Barbie is currently smashing box office records. It is currently, I believe it's #1 at the box office. I don't know if it's above or below Oppenheimer, but meanwhile, Mission Impossible has dropped off and had the biggest drop in years. So this mythical theory of as long as your movie isn't woke, it will be a huge success. Well, Mission Impossible is showing us that's not the case. And Barbie is showing us your movie can contain this so-called wokeness and make plenty of money. And we're going to talk about that. I guess we should talk about the actual movie, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to try my best to give a truncated series of events. Let's not stretch this out too long. So as you've likely seen in the trailers, the Barbie movie begins in Barbie World. It is a magical land filled with Barbies. As we see in the movie, all these Barbies theoretically are attached to a child somewhere else in the real world that is actually playing with them. And therefore, they take on the child's, I guess, personalities, fears, and dreams, whatever else. And that becomes a conflict very quickly. I'll talk about that in a second. Another conflict is that in the Barbie world exist, all the ancillary, is that how I pronounce it? Barbie characters, old discontinued dolls. The pregnant Barbie they joke about has been discontinued. But of course, the most important one is Ken. And the Ken we see here, played by Ryan Gosling. Now, in this world, there are many different Ken dolls, but the main Ken that we follow is Ryan Gosling, who's hilarious. Again, this is a movie that was marketed as a comedy, and it is a comedy at its heart, but it's a comedy that gets into some really interesting places and becomes a very artistic film by the end of it. However, there is still strong comedy going on. You've probably seen a lot of it in the trailers, seeing Ken and his buddies having a beach off and dealing with the fact that they live in a world where everything's made out of plastic. There's just a lot of good comedy in this movie. Point is that Ken is dissatisfied because this is a world that is made for the Barbies. You know, they have a Barbie president, Barbie doctors, Barbie secretary of state. The Kens are basically second-class citizens because, let's be real, girls play with Barbie dolls. Not every girl has a Ken. A Ken is like an accessory to Barbie. A Ken is like another, a stupid purse for her to wear, a random new outfit. So Kens are disrespected. Meanwhile, Ryan Gosling's Ken is very clearly in love with Margot Robbie, but she keeps disrespecting him. She doesn't feel the same for him as well. And that becomes a major rift as he's trying to win her affections and failing constantly. Now, the call to action for our character Barbie is when she starts to have these strange, intrusive thoughts. And I guess this was in the trailer. I must have forgotten about it, because when it happened in the movie, I was like, wow, they're really going there? Aren't kids watching this film? Where everybody's singing and dancing, and Barbie goes, hey, you guys ever think about death? And everything just stops, and they're like, what are you talking about? We are like mythical dolls living in a paradise. We have never considered the concept of death before in our lives. And she's like, yeah, you're right, never mind, let's keep dancing. But it's clear that something has gone wrong. Some sort of intrusive thoughts are leaking into Barbie, and she's now having these real human problems, human emotions, and it's causing some troubles for her. She's starting to change. We see in the movie that Barbie, she has her feet in the classic high heel pose. All of a sudden, flat feet. Okay, she starts developing cellulite. She starts having depression. She doesn't know what's going on. And this is all friggin' hilarious. This is a very funny movie. Like, honestly, like, the first 30 minutes of this movie, I kept laughing. I was like, how can anyone hate this movie? I'm having so much fun with this stupidity. Everybody's overacting and being a zany, stupid bimbo doll. And I don't know, just something about it I find hilarious. So Margot Robbie Barbie, that's a mouthful, goes to visit Crazy Barbie or Ugly Barbie. I think they call her Weird Barbie. This is a Barbie doll that a child played with, cut off all its hair, drew stuff all over its face, played by Kate McKinnon, who basically explains to her that something is happening in the real world, and whatever child is playing with her is having some real deep-seated emotional issues, and that Barbie needs to travel to the real world, find that child, and figure out what's going on, or basically somehow needs to heal this rift that is developing between the Barbie world and the real world. Ken, who, as we remember, is infatuated with Barbie, decides to come along against her will. She reluctantly agrees. And here we have the little scene where they travel to the real world. I mean, you can look at these effects. They're hilarious. The sets are great. At one point, Ken gets knocked down on the beach, and I noticed that instead of sand, it's like this soft plastic foam that he's lying on that's textured to look like sand. Everything in the Barbie world looked fantastic. So this movie is a visual treat. It's beautiful. So Barbie and Ken end up in the real world, and this is where people start to get mad. People who, again, I don't think can wrap their heads around the idea that you can talk about a concept and talk about it in a satirical, funny way. It does not mean there's an evil leftist woke agenda to promote those ideas. What happens is Ken, who has obviously lived his whole life in Barbie world, or both of them have, but Ken specifically notices, hey, wait a minute, how come girls don't run everything here? It actually seems like guys are in charge. Ken, who, again, is like a second-class citizen in Barbie world, is very excited by the idea of a world where the men are in charge. And he starts, at one point, he goes to a school library, picking out books on patriarchy and business and horses and all these masculine topics, going, well, what if I could somehow be a part of this patriarchal culture? First, he tries to integrate himself in the real world, a bunch of hilarious montage scenes where he just walks into a doctor's office and he goes, well, I'm a man, just make me a doctor. And they're like, no, you have to go to medical school. He's like, I thought this was a patriarchy. I thought men just got whatever they wanted. So after he can't make it work in the real world, he goes back to Barbie world to try and turn that into a patriarchy, a world run by the Kens. Now, I can't believe that people are upset about this. That's a funny premise. That that Ken gets in his head this terrible, bizarre idea that, first of all, his concept of a patriarchy is idiotic. He just thinks it's drinking beer, dressing the Barbies up in maid outfits, and making the dream houses up to look like saloons with big screen TVs. Like, it's so funny. And there's people who are going, oh, God, I can't believe the Barbie movie tries to lecture us on the patriarchy. It's not lecturing you on the patriarchy. It's making fun of the idea of, like, what if an idiot discovered the idea of patriarchy and tried to implement it in a magic world filled with stupid dolls? That's funny. Oh, God. Here's that clip I was talking about. Tell me this is not funny.
Oh, I won't let you do just one appendectomy.
But I'm a man.
But not a doctor.
Can I talk to a doctor?
You are talking to a doctor.
And I need a clicky pen?
No.
A sharp thing?
No.
There he is. Doctor!
Somebody get security.
He just walks into a doctor's office and says, I'm a man, make me a doctor. I've studied your patriarchy. This is how it works. That's funny. How could you be upset at that? You're killing me. I'm said I was going to try to not get angry, and I'm going to try. Now, meanwhile, because Barbie and Ken have made it to the real world, this gets the notice of the Mattel executives. They mentioned having dealt with this situation before where a Skipper doll escaped to the real world and tried to, kidnap some children or something like that. I think it works. Again, with Will Ferrell, I was actually hoping this plot point was a bit funnier. It is a boardroom, obviously all of men. Barbie, comes in at one point. It's like, well, where's the woman who runs all this? And then Will Ferrell does give a hilarious speech about how much he loves women and why he's the right guy to run the company. There's some humor there. I think it could have went a little bigger, but it ultimately works. And one of the conflicts, again, are these Mattel executives trying to get Barbie to go back to Barbie world because they're worried that if they can't get her back in her stereotypical Barbie role, that all the toys are going to start shifting and changing. And we actually see that happen. As Ken begins taking over Barbie world, we see that toys in the real world begin shifting to Ken toys, that Barbie's dream house has become Ken's, what does he call it? Mojo, Dojo, Casa House. It's just a big, stupid frat boy party house playset that for some reason is selling very well. So I thought that, and I laughed out loud. Guys, this movie is very funny. Not all the humor is fantastic. Again, I feel like Will Ferrell was almost kind of wasted. But the other stuff of just these stupid dolls going around trying to interact in the real world, I was laughing my ass off. Now, here's where the movie has maybe its biggest flaw. And I have to, again, remind you guys, this movie is aimed at women. So I don't want to be crazy, but I would love to hear from female reviewers if they felt the same way about this mother-daughter character duo. So basically, Barbie has a vision where she is able to determine who the girl is that's playing with her. She narrows it down to this girl, I believe her name was Sasha, who is now a dejected high school girl. And this, again, is another one of those scenes where I think the people reviewing this movie are stupid and don't understand when a character is being made fun of and not celebrated. Because this Sasha character, she goes, "You're Barbie. You have, helped perpetuate unrealistic beauty standards for women. You have held the women's rights movement back 50 years. She goes, "You're basically a fascist." Guys, they're making fun of people who think this way. Do you really think Mattel is trying to tell... Again, Mattel made this movie. Mattel paid for this movie. They approved the script. Do you really think Mattel would have... that says Barbie held back women's liberation, that Barbie is a fascist. No, they're ridiculing the fact that today's teenagers are social justice obsessed weirdos who just regurgitate stupid buzzwords they heard on the internet. They're making fun of this character. They're not celebrating her point of view. It's so obvious. How do you not get that? However, what we learn is that the girl in the high school was not actually the one who was playing with Barbie and projecting all her weird depression and thoughts of death onto the Barbie. It was actually the mom. The mom found a box of old Barbies and was remembering all the times that her and her daughter used to play with the Barbies. You know, currently, her daughter's obviously going through some sort of phase, doesn't want to hang out with mom, is a bit rebellious. So mom was playing with the Barbies, remembering the good times, and started to get weirdly sad and depressed and thinking about, you know, how everything ends and eventually everybody dies. And that was trickling down to the Barbie doll in the Barbie world. I think this plot point works in theory. I get it. It does work. It works on paper. Let's put it that way. I just thought the actress, the mom and daughter, felt a little... It's weird to say unrealistic in a movie about talking toys or whatever else. I just felt there was like an artifice to their performance where they did not feel like real human characters. They felt kind of cartoonish. I think it would have been a lot. There are other cartoonish human characters. Obviously, the Mattel executives, led by Will Ferrell, are running around and being big, dumb, stupid cartoon people. But I felt like for this role, the mother-daughter, you really needed to feel that human connection. It needed to feel very real. There are other scenes where Barbie interacts with other human beings and kind of has these moments, and those felt very real to me. But for some reason, her interaction with the mom and the daughter, they felt kind of artificial and forced. So that's a big critique I have. The other big critique, again, also involves this mom character. Because they go back to Barbie Land. Again, Barbie Land has been taken over by the Kens. And for some reason, all the Barbies have been brainwashed by this talk of the patriarchy. Apparently, just laying out what the patriarchy is, or however Ken explained it to them, has somehow made all the Barbies into idiots. And just like, I don't know, just the way Ken explained it, it makes perfect sense. Like, clearly we should be serving the boys brewskis and dressing up in skimpy outfits, and we love the patriarchy. So they realize they need to deprogram the Barbies and remind them that women are supposed to be in charge of Barbie Land. Barbies are supposed to be in charge of Barbie Land. Unfortunately, the way that they do that is by educating the Barbies on various feminist talking points. So, let's be clear. This is the part of the movie I was talking about when I said this movie definitely contains what you could call wokeness. Again, I don't like using that term, but if you think that term applies, have at it. Okay? It just felt a little too simplistic and on the nose that was the way to... I mean, let's put it this way. It both makes sense from a simplistic perspective that Ken has given people this simplified version of the patriarchy, and the way to overwrite it is to hit them over the head with the most basic, stupid feminist talking points. But I don't know if the movie is aware of how basic and stupid those talking points are. And some of those talking points, I mean, they're valid. It's just we've heard them a million times before. And, you know, they're always... It's hard to talk about this topic. Again, I'm a guy who... I believe in feminism. I believe women face certain unique challenges, and I don't think I will ever truly understand those challenges 100%. As a man, when I hear a female character go, you know, we're expected to be assertive, but not too assertive because then we're bossy. And, you know, basically, you know, talking about the glass ceiling, I don't think they mentioned that specifically, but kind of in that same sort of realm of like, why are women expected to do this, but men can do whatever they want? I guess it just, to me, feels uncreative. It's not funny. It's a little preachy. It works, but I can understand why people are turned off by it, because I was turned off by it. Though this was the one point in the movie where I went, well, I think this scene is for the ladies in the audience. I think there's ladies in the audience who want to hear, that's right, it is hard to get a raise, and, you know, too much is expected of us, and we're supposed to, you know, want money, but we can't, you know, appear greedy, and I'm like, oh, you know what? maybe women are getting something out of this. I'm gonna be, as a man, go, all right, this one's for the gals, this one's for the birds. To me, I went, it's a little much. But the rest of the movie, to me, is so much fun and contains so much beautiful artistry and camera work and choreography and whatever else that I'm not going to discount the entire movie because I had an issue with one scene I thought was a little ham-fisted. And that led to some more great comedy. Like, I was legitimately laughing when they're like, how do we distract the Kens? And one of them is like, go tell him that you've never seen The Godfather. And I'm like, all right, that's a pretty good knock on us guys. Because one of the Barbies goes over and she's like, oh, what are you watching? The Godfather? I've never seen it. And immediately the Ken's like, you've never seen The Godfather? Well, it's a classic. And she's like, well, could we restart the movie and you could talk over every scene and explain how important it is? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, all right, that's a good joke. That's a good joke about male behavior. Again, the movie remains funny. And I can't destroy this movie. I can't say this movie hates men because there's a few small scenes that hit on some feminist talking points that I thought were maybe a little, too on the nose. So at the end of the day, they managed to get the Kens to all turn on each other by exploiting the Kens' jealousy against other Kens. That felt a little convoluted as well, and I was confused as to why there was like two factions of Kens. That didn't exactly make perfect sense, though it did lead into a spectacular dance number that I had a ton of fun with. And while all the Kens are dancing and singing in this epic, awesome dancing, singing, choreographed number, the Barbies sneak into Parliament and overthrow the patriarchy and restore Barbie World back to what it needed to be. Ken, who was the leader of this, new Ken experience, obviously is shattered to see it all fall apart in front of him, but kind of has this weird little moment. Now, so I think some people are taking issue with the moral of the film. I don't even know how to describe the moral, but let's say this. You spend the movie, if you're me at least, you go, well, I hope Ken convinces Barbie that he has worth and that they get together. I mean, shouldn't Barbie and Ken be together? But by the end of the movie, Barbie still does not like Ken. I think there's some lines that try to justify it where it says, hey man, he stole your house and he hijacked this entire world and he turned all these women into slaves. Like, he's not a good guy. Ken is the villain, let's be clear. He's a likable villain, but he's the villain. And I was like, I don't know. I still, maybe call me sappy, but I still kind of want Barbie and Ken to end up together. I'm a romantic at heart. However, the moral they instead arrive at, where Ken is basically pleading, like, Barbie, the only thing I've ever wanted was you. I did all of this hoping I could get you, please. And she tells him, you keep defining yourself in relation to me. Okay? You are not Ken as Barbie and Ken. You should just be Ken. And you should be comfortable just being Ken. And I, as Barbie, should be comfortable just being Barbie and not in relation to anything else and not with an attachment to anything else. It's a little hard to parse out. I'm like, all right, I think I get you're saying just, love yourself for who you are is what I'm getting from this, which works for me. And Ken is clearly happy with it, whatever. So fine moral. I think some people have more nuanced takes on it, and I look forward to hearing those. But ultimately, I thought it was a fine way to wrap up that aspect of the plot line. Oh, real quick, this was a great gag in the film. This had the theater going nuts. This is when Ken has taken over the Barbieverse, turned it into his Kenopolis or whatever you call it. Ryan Gosling puts sunglasses over the sunglasses. I wish they had made that last a little longer in the trailer. Okay, I do have to say this. So I've said I consider this a beautiful film. And the reason is that there are these... this movie in the marketing kind of hid this aspect of the film that this movie is Pinocchio. Okay? It's about a doll that comes to life. It's about a doll that comes to life and desperately wants to be human. Which is, first of all, Pinocchio is a sad theme. Because that toys can't come to life. We know this. And just the idea, just what is the human experience? And why would anyone want it? A way I say to think about this film is it's basically a film you can think of the Barbies and the Kens like androids, you know, that they were programmed just to be playthings and thrown away and discarded. It's almost like this movie is almost like, I guess, I don't know if Toy Story is the right way to say it, but this is a film about an android that becomes self-aware and goes, wait, there is something beyond me. There is nature, there is human connection, there is life, there is family, and suddenly wants it. And wants it. So there's this scene in the movie, here we see it in the trailer for 2 seconds, where she's just like sitting on a park bench. Where was it? She's sitting on a park bench and just sees this old lady and just looks at her and she's like, you're beautiful. And the old lady goes, I know I'm beautiful. And they have this little like laugh. And it was just like really heartwarming that she's like discovering beauty. She comes from this plastic place where everyone has these perfect smiles and perfect bodies and they never age, and just sees an old lady and goes, this is beautiful to me. She's looking around at the trees, she's looking at children playing, she's looking at, you know, people just laughing on a park bench, or even people looking sad, people having an argument, and all of this experience and emotion, and she wants it. Again, I compare this to like Steven Spielberg's AI, where like an android wants to be loved, wants to feel love, wants to be a part of the human experience so desperately. This has more of a happy ending, spoiler, than a movie like AI, because it does allow Barbie to enter the real world. At the end of the movie, she's basically given a choice by the creator of Barbie, played by Rhea Perlman, who that just made me... God, Rhea Perlman is a Hollywood legend. Seeing her in that role, I was very excited. It made me a little emotional to see her still acting. I know she's getting up there in years. I don't know how much longer we have her around. She tells her, look, you know, you can become human, but, you know, in the Barbie world, everything lasts. Everything lasts forever. It doesn't age. You know, if you become human, you'll grow old. You know, eventually you don't last forever. The things around you fade. The people around you fade. There is heartbreak. There is loneliness. And Barbie is basically like, I know and I want it. And chooses the magic of the human experience. That is her transformation. To go beyond being a doll into a real person. I know this sounds stupid when I'm saying it, but the way the movie handled it with the imagery and the lighting and the swelling music, I was a baby. I was like, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And I'm very big on these narratives. I love these like AI movies about, you know, things that were considered toys and playthings and robots or whatever else, being like, I want something beyond this. I see what humanity is and I desire it for myself. I think that is such a powerful story every time it's told. I was not expecting it from a Barbie movie, but here's where we're at. And the fact that they did it in a Barbie movie, I was like, this is genius. This is brilliant. You tricked people into watching this dark, introspective, you know, movie about coming to terms with death and life and what it is to be human. I loved it. And the fact that it's being overshadowed by these fucking idiots who can only have the most surface level critiques. I'm like, how did you not see the beauty in that plot, in that story? How can you only say, oh, they hate men? They don't hate men. That's another thing you have to remember. Ken is not a man. Ken is a plastic toy. He's a doll. He's anything he says about patriarchy or manhood or the male experience is a parody of how it is in the real world. Saying this movie hates men is stupid. It's an idiotic thing to say. So I'm going to say this. Look, this movie has it all. It's funny. It's got great visuals. It's got a real heart to it. And this is a 9 out of 10 for me. Again, the only part where it went a little off the rails, the mother-daughter did not find them believable, and deprogramming Barbies by teaching them about feminism felt kind of stupid. If I was a woman, maybe this would be a 10 out of 10. But at the end of the day, I have to say, regardless of those tiny flaws, they make up maybe less than 5% of the movie. The rest of the movie was just fantastic. and I loved it. I loved Barbie. I would watch this again in a heartbeat. This is going to be a legendary film. This will be talked about for years. This is just a great piece of cinema. We're probably going to get a million sequels, which I don't want. I honestly do not want a sequel to this movie. It is a perfect standalone narrative. We might get a Ken movie they're talking about. I'll go see the Ken movie. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I love this movie. I love this movie, and I hope we can talk about it on a real level. I hope we did that here today. There's a lot of people out there who are talking about this movie specifically to try and get their audience riled up, to try and get hits, to try and, you know, again, boost their political brand. These are bad people. I don't feel bad saying that, okay? I consider these people scum-sucking assholes who hate art and hate stories and will never make anything beautiful in their lives. Barbie is a beautiful movie, and you should go see it. And that's the bottom line. Well, guys, that's my review of Barbie. I'm sure I'm getting tons of downvotes, and people are unsubscribing like crazy. I should have just made a video saying it's woke man-hating trash, and I probably would have done much better for myself, but it's not what we do on this channel. We try to be honest, and I hope you got a little honesty here today. Barbie from Greta Gerwig, and was that Warner Brothers? I think it was Warner Brothers. 9 out of 10 movie. I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. As close to 10 as I can get it. There's a couple flaws in that third act. Will Ferrell could have done a little bit more, but at the end of the day, a beautiful film. And I really liked it. We got more cool videos coming soon. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And, yeah, take care of yourself, man. If you want to see more beautiful things, head on over to superkiller.org. I came out of that movie inspired. I came out of Barbie ashamed that I am not making beautiful things and resolving to make beautiful things. My beautiful thing, Super Killer, coming soon. You can also get it on Indiegogo. Check that out. I love you guys. Bye.